I wanted to talk about how non-Muslims typically generally see the concept of punishment. And this is something when I did law at A-level, we looked at what the purpose of punishment and they call the purposes of sentencing. Why do countries or why do legal systems punish people? And I just thought it's interesting to quote because it's interesting to think about that in the light of Islam, not as an evidence because it's not an Islamic statement, but just to give some context as to typically why punishments are carried out. So the primary purposes of punishment are deterrence, both general and specific. So that is deterring the individual from committing the crime again and deterring others from committing that crime.
Okay.
Followed by retribution. In other words, payback on behalf of the victim, on behalf of those people who have been affected. They said that every punishment in every legal system is based upon this. These two are unanimous in all legal systems, that there is deterrence and there is retribution. Then consideration is given to incapacitation, stopping the person from being able to do it, rehabilitation, facilitating the person to rehabilitate, and restitution, in other words, giving back to the victim what was taken, depending on the crime. But those last three are not features of every punishment in every legal system.
Okay.
They are things that some crimes, there is consideration for incapacitating the person. In some, there is more of an effort to rehabilitate. In some, there is restitution. In some, there isn't restitution. But all punishments are based around deterrence of the individual and of the society and retribution. So I would argue that only Islamic law really achieves this in a fair and just way. In reality, I believe that modern laws in systems that we have outside of Islam have generally failed to do these things, broadly speaking. They fail to deter people from committing crimes, broadly speaking. It's generally the case that the punishments are getting lighter and lighter, and the amount of incarceration and things like that is increasing. People are not being deterred from committing crimes, neither as individuals nor as a society, because the punishment just isn't enough to deter people from doing it. There is not appropriate retribution, typically, and that's why we see people committing crimes that are horrific crimes and getting 10 years in jail for which they serve 5.
Right, yeah.
You know, that is, that is not appropriate retribution. It's not appropriate that somebody takes someone's life or somebody severely harms another person, and we're talking about some of the most horrific crimes, and then literally has 5 years of relative comfort, after which they walk out free. And it said that is retribution for, what they have done. I think that, that is something that typically now in modern legal systems is a complete failure, to be honest. It doesn't incapacitate criminals typically. It doesn't provide a means to rehabilitation. And in Islam, I want to think about rehabilitation not in the dunya, but also in the akhirah. How do I stand in front of Allah having committed this crime? How do I purify myself? And how do I come before Allah and make up for what I have done? Nor is there appropriate restitution typically for these kind of crimes. And then add to that typically we spend, as let's say taxpayers in the West, we spend billions and billions of pounds pampering these criminals. Typically a criminal in jail in the UK costs £45,000. That is, what is that, about $60,000 or so?
Something like
that. Yeah. Every single year. So you have people who have taken the lives of other people, sometimes children, in horrific ways, who have committed crimes that, to be honest, you can't, if it wasn't for the retribution in the hereafter, you would say there is nothing we can do to them in this dunya. Whatever torture you can think of would not be equal to the crime that they did. And yet we now pay £45,000 a year to pamper those people and look after them and take care of them when their victims are left with nothing. So to be honest, I genuinely believe that the systems that are there in the West are not serving either the people who committed the crimes, let alone the victims, in terms of giving them a means to true rehabilitation and reconciliation and so on in terms of the hereafter as well as the worldly life. They aren't deterring people from committing crimes. They aren't providing suitable retribution. And ultimately, they are costing, on top of that, loads and loads of money. And you just have to look at the state of prisons today and all the mental health issues, the people who are, suffering in there, who, to be honest, really, you see actually even just looking at the historical pattern from their system that things have got worse as they have lightened these punishments, not better. And I believe that is a fairly general trend. There isn't a lot, if you look in the world today, where you can find exceptions to that trend typically. So I believe that's really important. I'm not going to mention too many more things.
Okay.
Sorry, carry on.
No, let's get into a bit more of a discussion. I think some people who might be watching this might think that just the failure of one system, for example, the system that the West generally adopt, does not necessarily indicate that the other system is a successful one.
Yeah, I actually agree with that initially. Yeah. I agree with that as we need to investigate.
Yes.
But I do believe that people shouldn't be throwing stones from glass houses. You have people in Western systems where, to be honest, the system is an utter and total failure in every regard. It isn't serving anybody. It's not serving the public. It's not serving the victims. It's not helping people to commit crimes. And then those people stand in their glass houses throwing stones and saying, your Sharia is
but those people also say that these are man-made laws. We're going to get there. We're taking our time. We're improving every century, every decade. But your laws are divine from God, from Allah.
Exactly.
Surely that should be more criticized and looked at.
And that's what we're gonna prove, inshallah, in this hot seat episode, that these laws are the ones that are suitable, and that it's actually this law, the divine law, that would actually bring about those objectives that those non-Muslims have quoted, being deterrence, both general and specific, retribution, rehabilitation, both in this world and the hereafter, and restitution and being incapacitated and so on, that those would actually come from the religion of Islam.